Hello, everyone. I'm Tereza Nemessanyi. I'm entrepreneur in residence and chief troublemaker at Microsoft. And I'm also a recovering tech entrepreneur. And it's such a delight. I'm going to sit down here now. It's an intimate discussion. To be facilitating this amazing panel of women who I've admired for quite a long time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aileen Lee, founding partner of Cowboy Ventures and a partner at Kleiner Perkins Caulfield and Byers. And next to her we have Gina Bianchini, founder and CEO of Mighty Bell. And finally Susan Feldman, co-founder and chief merchandising officer at One Kings Lane. So I'm going to kind of kick off each one and ask them to
everything.
Yeah, I know. There's so much opportunity out there.
When you look at whether it's healthcare or whether it's education, we're at the point in time with technology where we have this foundation in place, where we have 3 billion people connected via digital devices. Fundamentally, everything about culture, education, healthcare, fun, entertainment is about the connection of people. So now that we actually have everybody connected, we have this tremendous opportunity to reinvent and to innovate.
Yeah,
and the collaborative economy, or the fact that you can like walk outside and have an Uber driver pick you up, or even better, a TaskRabbit person help you out with something that you want to do, it simply wouldn't exist without the foundation that we've put in place over the last 10 years. And when I say we, I mean all of us. Every person with a device is participating and contributing to the potential of us reinventing how people interact and the way to find like-minded people and make good friends. Now, my concern is, are we going to sit back and passively watch a feed, or are we going to proactively roll up our sleeves and be involved? And I think it's an open question, and one that I believe has the greatest potential to decide if we're going to solve, big problems that are seemingly impossible today, or if we are going to sit back and throw up our hands and become desensitized to the possibilities and the things that we are capable of changing.
I just add to.
Sorry, that was a guest lecture.
I would just add, the whole kind of thesis of when people say, like, what do you invest in at Cowboy Ventures, we call it Life 2.0, right? I just think we probably all would agree that we're in this amazing period of the reimagination, the reinvention of everything you do in your life, whether it's your work life or your home life, your entertainment life, your education life. It was, probably just 5 years ago that you would wake up in the morning and you would either turn on the TV to find out the news, or maybe go to your front doorstep and pick up your newspaper, right? Like the whole kind of business process of getting information has completely changed in just the past 5 years. I think it was only 3 years ago when the plane crashed in the Hudson and people turned to Twitter to figure out what had happened, right? Like basically, no one was really even, I don't think that was really in the mainstream 3 years ago. And so how we get our information has changed. How I take notes. I used to be, I still am a very copious note taker, but
yes,
I used
you
to,
are.
I know. And
going paperless.
Notebooks, right? But now I'm totally paperless. Everything's in Evernote or in Google Drive or something like that. So it's like both, so it's not just, I think, your social life that's being reinvented. It's whole industries that weren't really touched by kind of like the B2B 1.0 of the early 2000s. I think whether it's the transportation industry or the education industry, healthcare, like Gina mentioned, like every kind of vertical industry, and then horizontally in your work life and your personal life is, I think, I think the negative or scary way to talk about it is software eating the world. But I think there's a positive way where actually software is making the world more transparent, more efficient, more delightful, more fun, more connected.
I think the other thing that, as you're talking about this, the reinvention and the reimagination of everything, now that we're all connected online, is also presents, I think, interesting opportunities both online and offline. So I think, not just reimagining industries, how they are working online, but I think you'll start to see changes, like offline brick and mortar, things like that are starting to happen too, which is interesting. So the way we touch and experience everything, like I said, we're in the midst of really what is like a revolution. Everything's changing, and it's changing really fast.
I think that's such a great point, that I think there are still some people, and thankfully it's a smaller number of people, that believe that the definition of success with digital technology is time spent. Like, if you're spending 3 hours on Pinterest a day, that's success. I believe
That's very linear.
Yeah, I believe that the greatest impact we're going to see from digital technology is the way that people are going to be connected and make connections in the real world as a result of being connected. So even the fact that you probably found out about this conference online somewhere, or through Twitter, or through email, or through somebody inviting you, and we're all here together this morning, and we have an opportunity to have different kinds of conversations than the ones that you would have out last night in the meatpacking district, where lots of people stay up late, as I learned having stayed there. I think that is the moment to celebrate. And those are the things that are so exciting, whether it's to make my living room prettier, or whether it is to meet interesting people, or to be able to be in the same physical location. Where I look at this woman in the front, she has great hair. And I'm lucky because your hair is great, because I'm really actually totally admiring it right now. So I think that is so important when we think about just the quality of our real lives and our real life relationships.
I love the fact that women's lives have always been very multiple. I mean, we have multiple roles that we cycle through like every single day. And I think a bit about how the manufacturing era, that century, was extremely siloed, and it was fundamentally architected where we were not really part of that, and people would drive somewhere else, or maybe initially they didn't drive, but they would go somewhere, punch in, do a limited piece of work, and then ultimately punch out. Women stayed home to take care of the kids. For centuries before that, millennia, it was the family farm, it was the family business, the economic unit was, highly intermingled. And it's so exciting to see how shards are happening and being kind of thrown off, and the technology that we have available to us. I mean, I truly believe that this is a moment where women can step in and be not only relevant, but actually drive much of the power, because we can harness our multiplicity in ways that just were completely impossible. Anyway, Aileen, what are you looking? I'm trying to word this right.
As the person on the stage with money, what are you looking for? In terms
well, I don't want to ask the boring question, but what
in
do you
terms
think that
of
interests
where would you like to
And
invest
we
it?
just talked about it.
You know.
Actually, I have to say, a lot of it is.
I can ask her that.
I do have a
They're
little
friends.
bit of a wish list of things that I'd love to see.
What do you want to see? What
But
do you want
a
to
lot
see?
of it is really, you can't manufacture it, actually. Like, it has to, if Gina or Susan came into me and we had a meeting and they were like, I've got this idea, I'm working on this thing. A lot of it is actually, it's the passion of the entrepreneur. There are basic things that all investors generally look for, like, is the market size big enough, right? We usually look for addressable markets that are at least $5 or $10 billion, because we are all interested in helping build very large companies. And ideally, the founder has got some special skill that they bring to the table, some magic, whether it's product or technology or marketing or some kind of insight that they have that's going to make them the perfect founder for the company. But that's really like, the criteria are very broad, because a lot of it is really like, I didn't have on my wish list like reinventing, kind of building a whole new brand in the home category, right? But then when Susan and Allison came in and said, this is what we're working on, I was like, oh, this is kind of a no-brainer. So, sorry, that's a lame answer.
Well, and
That's lame.
then you look at how it's being executed, because I think that's so important. I think, before One King's Lane, I had a million ideas that I never actually, acted on, and but I think somebody else could have the same idea, maybe just didn't execute it the same way.
Yeah,
So,
I
I think that's I see that a lot, because I talk to entrepreneurs a lot, and I see that might not be a bad idea, but it's maybe not going at it quite the right way, or thinking about it way too big, or.
And I think that that's one of the opportunities that we have with each other, and hopefully it's one of the reasons why you guys are here today, which is thinking bigger. So the two biggest challenges I see with women entrepreneurs, and especially women entrepreneurs in technology, is one, they're not thinking big enough. So to go to Aileen's point about market size,
markets, yeah.
and really understanding, are you going after something that has a massive market and a massive potential? They talk a lot, investors talk a lot about like looking for vision. And I think that that's really important. The other thing that I think we have an opportunity to do that I think would create more companies for you to invest in that are women-led is celebrating and pushing your friends and the women who you meet today to not only think bigger, but to be unapologetic capitalists. And there's actually something very interesting that I have observed, and it's potentially very controversial to say this, which is I've observed that, well, and the data actually shows this too, that women for the most part make 70 cents on a dollar for every man. It's typically because they're not negotiating. And this includes really thinking about the value of your product, thinking about the value of your service, and then tapping your friends to say, am I thinking big enough? Am I asking for, enough money? Am I focused on revenue? Because the reality, and this does not apply to Aileen, but one thing I would observe for venture investors is, especially for women, they want to see you making money.
No, I want to see you making money.
Aileen also wants to see you making money. And I think that that's actually something that male technology entrepreneurs do not get held to the same standard as women entrepreneurs do as it relates to again, looking at something that's very risky and saying, do I believe that they're going to be able to make it? The research actually shows that women are valued and evaluated more on their results, and men are valued on their potential. And in a world where you're getting money you're basically getting money based on your potential, women have a much greater opportunity when they focus on revenue.
Let me push back on that a little, or not push back, but expand the pie a little bit more.
Would that be, one sec, would that be accurate?
Yeah, no,
you like money.
Well, I think it depends. So I think about when ventures, and we all spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs actually, so you guys have a strong point of view on this as well. I think of the world simplistically in terms of like, if there was a business model to your business, there's generally two kinds of businesses. There are audience businesses and there are transactional businesses. Mm-hmm. Transactional businesses are about making money, right? It's about what's your, like, you're an e-commerce, a company like Square or Airbnb, people don't think of that as e-commerce or Uber, but that's e-commerce. It's about the number of transactions, the size of the transaction, the margins, the frequency. It's kind of about the economics of your P&L. That is your business. Audience-based businesses generally don't really have a P&L, right? It's really about the size of your audience, the engagement level of your audience, the momentum that you have in terms of like, do you have to pay for people to participate in your product, or is it actually just happening naturally, and is the rate of organic growth kind of increasing and healthy? And if you look at businesses like Facebook or Tumblr or Twitter, those are companies that actually generally get valued at higher multiples than commerce companies, because acquirers usually are thinking, I've got a big sales force, I'll figure out how to monetize that gigantic audience later. So in that case, it's really not about like how much money are you making, it's really about your audience and the engagement level. So just a little clarification.
Well, that actually segues perfectly, because I think when we think about, where so much of women's power is, and it is around communities. I mean, when you're talking to male investors, that sounds very esoteric to them, and so where's the transaction in it, or where's the advertising? And they're not that interested in advertising revenue. So it's a tricky line to balance. And then if you're talking about MLM models or direct marketing models, a lot of people go, ew.
Yeah, I mean, they oftentimes just don't get it.
Yeah.
Unless there's, happens to be a woman at the table, unfortunately.
Well, I think your framework is a really good one. And the thing that I think is important to also remember, though, about audience businesses, if you're going after an audience business, how many people are going after, as you think about based on the definition Aileen had, how many are transaction businesses? How many are audience businesses?
More.
How many are services businesses? Okay. Because I think one of the things that is confusing at times, if you think that you're going to go after investment or build a kind of a business that requires an investment, audience businesses need to be effing huge. So they need to and again, women are going to be held to a higher standard. So the kind of baseline is you're growing users and active users at least in technology, and this is a technology panel, so I'll show that, at 30% or more a month. And so sometimes, again, this is where it's so important to think bigger. And one of the gifts that Aileen gives me as an entrepreneur is this push to be like, that's not good enough. Like, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. You have to aim higher. You have to work harder. You have to, be bigger. And I think that that's actually really important and a really important gift. From the transaction side, when you're going after a big market, really making sure then that you're showing that revenue growth is also very important. And that's where we can help each other and support each other towards bigger and bigger goals.
When we were standing back there, sort of connoitering, I lobbed a question out there, and you were like, "That's a totally boring question," and you moved it into.
I did not say that's a totally.
We're among friends.
I said I'm bored by that question.
Oh, you're bored by that question. Totally legitimate. So. Which was a completely self-serving question, which is, what do I tell my 10-year-old daughter? And really, it's all in the context of how do we make a boatload more Gina's and Susan's, and have each of you kind of, become fantastic entrepreneurs, which, by the way, could be the 10x return or the 30x, return to Aileen, or it could be like a damn great lifestyle business. I hate that term, because if you're doing well and you're creating growth and amazingness for yourself, like, you've so succeeded. But we need to create many, many of these, and you had some great ideas about where to unlock. Could you explore that a little?
One of the things that I have observed is that when women, and this is not meant to be a generalization, run up against a challenge, and when the reality that this is hard, and this is hard for men and it's hard for women in terms of creating something out of nothing, sometimes what giving up looks like is turning around and saying, well, I didn't make it, but I'm gonna make it okay for my daughter. The best, not that that's a bad goal, but the single best thing that we can do for each other is, in those moments that look very, very dark, is to help each other through it and get to the other side. I believe that we have to stop looking at the world as if we didn't catch that 13-year-old window, or 13, when you're 13, if you're not an entrepreneur or a computer scientist by the time you're 13, then it's over for you. But instead look at it as every single person at every age, with the right community and close-knit support around them, it is possible to break through in ways that we can't even imagine for ourselves sometimes. And if we're asking each other to think bigger and challenging each other, especially in those moments when you feel like giving up, that is the single best thing we can do for our 10-year-old daughters. Because it demonstrates perseverance and resilience and courage. And I think that that is really where the future is going to be, if we're going to, again, make the decision to put our fingerprints on where the world is going, as opposed to sitting back and passively watching a feed go by.
Yeah. Susan, have you had any of those moments?
Yeah, no, I think even just starting my own business, I think, whether you're 10, 13, 20, 30, 40, older, I think oftentimes you need somebody, to really just sort of push you in the pool and then help you get to the other side. I think we experienced that in starting our business. We hemmed and hawed about doing it. There were a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have done it. The world was imploding. There was a recession going on. There were no capital markets. I could have come up with a million reasons, why we shouldn't have done it. But, we had the support, from our partners, in this case, that just said, just do it. The worst thing that will happen is it won't work. Like, that was the worst thing that could possibly happen. And I think if thinking about it like that, if we can encourage other women and our kids, our daughters, and whoever else to do that, there will be more successful, women out there at the end of the day.
I think a couple things that you guys pointed out. One is, failure is okay.
Yeah, totally.
I think I have grown up with a fear of failure. And as a result, I think I probably talked myself out of or didn't try things that I should have tried. And a couple other things I would add. One is my daughters are actually here, so hopefully
As
they're
are
listening and not playing with their phones. I do hope that they will learn how to code, and we'll probably do it together. I do think actually storytelling skills are really important for every person in business or in life. Like a lot of, to make a sweeping generalization, which is often inaccurate, like a lot of women don't have the confidence to tell their story in a very, in a confident way. It's like storytelling is a huge part of fundraising, of recruiting, of selling your products. So like learn, if it's, go to Toastmasters or go to I think Debate Club is actually a great way to learn how to argue your point of view and have that confidence. And yeah, having a fantastic support network of people who do not just blow smoke at you, but actually challenge you in a constructive way, to push you to make sure that your idea is worth taking the risk, or if it doesn't sound like it is, how do you change it, or like kind of basically make it bigger or make it more compelling, and work through that stuff. It's just, I think it's hard to do in a vacuum. And the other thing is, I think that both of you guys were saying is like it can happen at any age, right? If you look at some of the women that we admire most in politics, right, like Madeleine Albright, or in California, like Anna Eshoo, and like these are women who actually were stay-at-home moms and went into politics later on in life, or even like if you look at J.K. Rowling, right? I mean, she wasn't like a star writer coming out of college. She did it much later in life. So I think it actually can happen at any time for anyone.
Words to live by. It's time to open it up to Q&A. So I invite you to stand up and shout out your questions. Are there mics out there? Or we've got a mic in the back. Several. So bring it. Oh, we've got one here in the front. Would you stand up?
Thank you. My name is Sarah Spiker. I'm a virtual business manager, and I just want to thank you. I don't actually have a question. For all the inspiration. I started my business because I lost my job when I was pregnant, and I was determined to show my daughter.
Can you talk closer to the microphone so
like
we
this?
can hear you? Yeah.
Oh, now we
better.
go. I started my own business because I lost my job when I found out I was pregnant, and I am determined to show my daughter that it's possible. So I just wanted to thank you to tell everybody out here your stories and confirm that just go for it. Don't be afraid. It's gonna work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you.
Who else? Oh, here we go, in the front row.
It's okay. You can.
Yeah, shout it out.
Hi, ladies. We have a t-shirt collection that's based online, and I think One Kings Lane, you could probably help us with this. I wanted to know some solid things on how to draw customers in the beginning to e-commerce, because I find when we do vending, people are like buying right away, like they love it. But online, it's difficult for us to get people to the website.
Get traffic to your website.
Yeah, so in the beginning for the startup, like what are some things that you can use for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some creative ways, and these guys would, I'm sure, have a lot of input on this as well. But I mean, having limited resources, again, I think you have to get creative and, try to collaborate with bloggers is a great way to do it, so that they're directing people, to your site. You might have to give them a couple T-shirts, and have them say how much they love them. I think any kind of, PR that you can get around that. I think, Facebook, Pinterest, all those things are great, places to try to drive traffic to your site without, spending a lot of money. And then, of course, if you do have resources, there's, other creative ways that you can go at it by, buying, words on Google and things like that.
Novelty. If there is something that you can do that is different than everybody else,
That's right.
there is tremendous power in that. So there's two great books. I'm totally one of those people that read business books on a Saturday afternoon, super nerdy, I know.
Me too.
It's cool. One is actually called Made to Stick, which I really found to be helpful, just in terms of starting my own, thinking oh my God, it'd be so cool if we did this. The second book that I just read, actually, it's pretty good, called Contagious.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's less that these are, completely new ideas, but they're just good in terms of thinking about, I wonder what we could do to either create a limited edition novel t-shirt that then basically somebody is wearing that then we're sending people to our website? Or is there some way that we could actually own a day? So is it like T-shirt Friday, super dorky, I'm going just with this right, I'm riffing off this right now, so you're gonna have to forgive me, please don't tweet that. But just something where you basically can kind of own something in people's head and then figure out how to maximize all of these channels to get as many people thinking about it and focusing in on it. One of the other things that I saw recently, actually, through this community we're in, is if you go and look at this video that Hello Flow did, which is basically like a box in addition to your period that gets delivered every month. One you pay for, actually both you pay for, let's be honest. So anyways, they did a video that is amazing, and it went viral. Not that you were going to create a viral video and that there's any science to it, but those are just some ideas that might be good for, again, in the novelty.
Yeah. And I just add, try and figure out who your customer is. Like, of the people who've bought your product so far, who are they? And then I would just go figure out, like, where do they live online, where do they live offline, and be really focused about, like, basically going to get more of those people.
I'm actually friends and work with them, and I mean, that was literally a $6,000 video that they spent 9 months, working on, and it was conceived, late one night with friends over Thai food and wine. And the thing though is, like, they really struck at something that was unsaid. I mean, you're just speaking to your point on novelty. They just thought of what is unsaid, and they said it, and they said it so well. And frankly, they harnessed people, their communities, people that they knew who were great at delivering messages, and I mean, just hit the ball out of the park.
Your point of knowing your customer, I think is great.
It's a great story. Who else do we have here? Come on.
I have a follow-up question. I'm sorry. One more. To you about your customer. Do you keep in mind who you want your customer to be, or do you go after the customer that we have currently?
I mean, I would probably try both, right? I mean, if you know that you've got success with certain people, try to figure out, like, why are they buying it? What is it about it, right? And are you not happy with the people who are currently buying it, or?
Not that we're not happy. I think because of the quality of our shirts, they are worth a good amount of money, but the people that are buying it now, I don't think they would spend the amount of money on our shirts. So we want to go for a more higher end, but it's hard to reach that crowd in the beginning.
That sounds like maybe, and you guys, I'm sure, have great thoughts here, like maybe seeding your aspirational market with some product and seeing if it takes. And if it's not taking, then I would try and learn from that and figure out, like, why. If you can do some research, if you send the shirt to people and ask them, like, would you buy this or not? If they say no, I would listen to what they're saying.
You also may want to think about empowering some ambassadors to then kind of provide pull-through or extend into other pockets of people. So in a way, they're like an unpaid sales force.
Ambassadors are great. I mean, when we started, we had nobody. And we had a goal when we launched to have 5,000 members, and we did it all through ambassadors. We came up with 100 people that we knew that we said we'd give you a credit on the site if they would send an invitation to 100 more people and ask them to do that. And literally the day we launched, we had 5,000 members exactly. And that's a great way to start, because then things tend to organically grow, and you get the people that you want as your customers.
Terrific. So we're actually bringing it in for a landing here. Thank you so much to each of you for flying out and being with us this morning, and thank you all for being such a great audience.
Thanks for being here.